What is going on, boys and girls? Welcome to the Bass, Kayak, and Beers podcast. It's your boy Armando. As always, got a great episode for you today. Didn't hear a can opening. I still got some of those Modelos that a friend of mine brought me in bottles and some Hennekens. This is the last one of my Modelo beers. So if you didn't hear the can opening, you probably heard the bottle opening. So that's a new thing. Couple of brand new things here in with me. First of all, I'm gonna put it out there because I'm gonna need all of your help. You gotta help hold me accountable for this. I am currently at 212 pounds. That is like 20 pounds what I should be weighing at my height, which is 5'11". I should be somewhere in the mid 180s. And I recorded, I did a live show. I don't know if y'all saw it. The audio wasn't good, which actually was going to be what this episode was going to air, but the audio didn't come good. We had to improvise a lot in ICAST. We'll talk a little bit about that. But I did an interview with Fred Contai, the rod designer for Douglas. It was a great interview. Unfortunately, the audio was not good. But that's not the point. The point is that I saw myself on that video with my big beer belly, and I'm like, I need to do something about this. So I'm currently at 212 pounds. The goal is to get to at least 190. So every week that I record, I'm going to give you an update. And if I'm not losing weight, feel free to troll me, to bash me publicly on social media. By the way, you can follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube under Bass, Kayak, and Beers. You can also email me. If you have ideas for the show, if there's anything that you want to listen, any guest, anything that you want me to cover on the podcast, feel free to message me through social media or my email, Bass, Kayak, and Beers, and give me some constructive criticism. What can I do better? And what am I doing good that you love about it? So, anyways, we're going to get to 190. I'm not going to set a timetable. I just want at least every time I record that I lose 4 or 5 pounds, until I get to 190. So we'll see. Anyways, we got a great episode for you today. I got Brian Schiller, the OG, the godfather for not Bass, Kayak, and Beers, for Paddle and Fin Network. And we both, along with Jimmy Skinner, we were at ICAST. And like I said, the interview that I did with Fred Contai from Douglas Rod was supposed to be this episode, but again, the audio wasn't good. So what I did is Brian was nice enough to join me tonight. He's a very busy man. To talk about what we loved about ICAST and the products that we saw, the products that we love, and what we didn't like as far as products out there in ICAST. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. Before we get into that, always the Waypoints commercial are coming up. But before that, big thank you to my sponsor, Douglas Outdoors. Go to Douglas Outdoors. Check out their full lineup of LRS, X-Matrix, and fly fishing rods. We'll go to a quick Waypoints commercial, and we'll bring Brian, the Killer Schiller. What's going on, Brian?
What up, brother?
Thank you for joining me, man. I know you're super busy,
dude.
So I appreciate it.
I had the same thought after seeing a few photos of me at ICAST. I was like, dude, I have let myself go, and and it was funny because we were at the New Canoe House, right? After the show, I think it was either Tuesday or Wednesday. And after the show, we would all go back to the house, and I would have to upload and edit some stuff to go up on the New Canoe pages. And our guy, shout out to Will Reed, awesome photographer, took some great photos of me and the rest of the guys. And I'm like, dude, do you get a shot where you're not getting a side profile of my gut? And he's like, oh, You don't like that? I got some Photoshop tricks for that. And he shrunk it down, dude. And I look like I was like, dude, I don't need to
Brad
look
Pitt.
No, dude. I was like, I look like I'm from Ethiopia and haven't eaten in 2 months, dude, but it was funny. But I was like, dude, and it's funny because I think it was Saturday night after the show. A couple of us went up to Gunnersville to fish, And John Rapp's like, dude, you need to do something. Like, I don't mean to harp on you. And I'm like, trust me, I know. Like, I'm overweight. I need to chill out on that. And I smoke like a chimney. So I need to like scale back on that too. And yeah, so I'm right there with you, dude.
Yeah, leave it to good old John Rapp to sugarcoat things, man.
Yeah, right. I was like, trust me, dude, it's something I've been thinking about. And I was actually like eating somewhat really well going up to ICAST, and then like I knew ICAST, I wasn't gonna be able to control it. I was gonna be eating out. So I like
Yeah.
splurged, and I was just like, oh, now I'm back home and like trying to eat healthy again. So hopefully I can drop some weight too, dude.
Yeah, same thing, man. Like I've been meaning to get, but I was like, ICAT is coming up, and I know it's gonna be, walking, running, eating junk food. So like, I'll just wait till I get back from ICAST. But anyways,
Yeah. I definitely didn't have my Speedo body ready for ICAST.
summer body's gone. Too late.
Yeah.
All right. So I guess we could talk a little bit about what we both liked and love about ICAST. I know I got a couple of things that I wanted to mention, but I want to start off with you because you had like front row seats to that. What do you call it? The build off, the competition between Romel and I forgot the name of the other gentleman. Remind me again.
It was Romel Labrador, aka the Wizard Works. Romel's the guy that builds all of Greg Blanchard's kayaks, so I'm sure everybody listening has seen Romel on one of Greg Blanchard's YouTube videos. He's out there in California, and then Fletch Griffin from Westbrook Supply Co. Everybody remembers Westbrook Wednesday with Scott Butcher.
Yep.
Where you at, Scott? And New Canoe didn't really come out with anything new this year, so to speak. Like we launched the Unlimited last year, so that was kind of our big release last year. This year, we kind of focused on all the stuff we have and really spotlighted that stuff. So it was kind of cool that Blake and some of the other guys were like, let's have a build off, because we knew Fletch was going to be hanging out in the booth with us. Romel always flies in. He works with Newport Vessels. So we were like, oh, let's spotlight, each of the hot motors, right? So Fletch built a kayak based around the XI3. Romel built one based around the Newport Vessels because he works for Newport Vessels. And they kind of had a build off, and they tricked him out real nice. And, we kind of did a spotlight video of each of them, actually putting the kayaks together at the show. Fletch definitely got a jump on Romel because Fletch drove down from Georgia. So he did most of the building at his shop, whereas Romel flew in from California, and he was building a boat that he couldn't really drill holes in and stuff like that. So, but what he did without doing that was pretty badass,
Yep.
So those guys kind of went head to head and, kind of put all their blood, sweat, and tears into it, and super cool build outs. And then we let the people vote, and I forget how many hundreds of votes we had. I think we had like 350, 400 votes or something.
Wow.
And Romel won because he intermixed some pretty sweet technology into it. So like a quick run through, like Fletch did the XI3 on the front, and he used I think it's called battery puck or something like that. So like where your normal quick disconnect motor guide mount would go under the XI3, instead of like having it that little U-bar that slides in, there is a U-bar, but instead of it dropping on top, it slides in, and it's got battery plugs. So it's completely hidden, seamless. You don't see any wires or anything like that. So that was really cool. And then they had the New Canoe gear pod right behind that, and they wired up a Bluetooth radio in it with like two speakers. going back towards the seat, he had like a LED digital battery readout. He put a car horn in it.
Yeah.
So like everybody was pushing the horn button as they walked by. He had a big Yak Gadget crate that's kind of like a prototype for Yak Gadget, where like the battery goes in the bottom, and then you can fit 3,700 boxes on the top. And then he had the New Canoe foot steering with the rudder in the back. And that was basically it, I think, for his. And then jumping over to Romel's build, he did some really tricky wiring where he put a Siri in the boat and it mounted up by the gear pod. So he would sit and he put navigation lights and deck lights mounted in that gear pod. So he'd say, "Hey Siri, turn on the navigation lights," and they'd pop on. Same thing with the deck lights. In true Romel fashion, he did his own custom fish finder mount. I think that was it for the front.
The shallow anchor was Siri activated too.
Yeah,
that was pretty awesome.
Well,
That's pretty awesome.
So he made that's the one thing right now. There's not really a bracket out there where you could mount the Newport vessel and a power pole together on a new canoe, because we get that flat transom back.
Yeah.
Without like the 4-bolt pattern that you see on most kayaks. So he made his own bracket and he put a micro power pole on there, and it was voice activated. He'd say, "Hey Siri, pull down," and the power pole would go down, and he'd say, "Hey Siri, power pole up," and it would go up. And then it had the Newport vessel's motor on the back. He had the new Bioenno Power 24 volt 50 amp battery, which is super tiny, and I need to get my hands on one. And but the whole voice activated. Oh, and he had a radio too. I forget if it was in the crate or where it was. Oh no, it was just the Siri pod. That little Siri, I think they call it the Apple ball or Apple, I forget
it's
what
like
it
a
is.
sphere.
Yeah, so he had the radio playing out of that. But yeah, it was super tricked out with some technology, and talking with those guys who I mean, Fletch's build was definitely made for like fishing out of. Romel's like, it was a build off, dude. We were just tricking these things out. So I went, balls to the wall and way overdid it. He's like, "I wouldn't put this in my kayak, I'll be honest." But like for a show thing, it was really cool. And it was cool to be a part of that. And like we did the walkthroughs, showed the build offs, and then we did a show where we talked about them. And those guys were super respectful of each other and like commending each other on both their builds. And and then we announced that Romel won. So there was an awesome, somebody was holding the mic in front of me and I had both their hands, and then I announced it and raised Romel's hand. So there's a photo of that floating out there. But it was a cool thing and something different like that we did for the show. And I think it got a lot of follows and likes. Obviously both those guys are really well known in the industry for building out kayaks and tricking them out and stuff. So it was super cool to see their takes on each of those builds for sure.
Yeah, no, it was super cool to see that. And again, it's more of I don't know, like more like a fantasy kayak thing.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Like that's something you would use for tournament fishing, but more like a party kayak. But it was cool, man. Like getting those creative juices out there and just kind of like pushing the envelope of what's attainable. It was pretty cool.
Oh, for sure. Like John Rapp was like, "Dude, that Bluetooth radio that Fletch did," he's like, "You should put that in your gear pod," because before the show, we had fished Fellsmere, and I got like one of those little JBL Bluetooth speakers, and I had it on my kayak, and we were rolling back to the ramp, and we had some like reggae tunes or something blasting, and just having a good time, jamming out to tunes while we were fishing. And John was like, you should put that in yours. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. Like my little speaker that I paid $40 for does just fine.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a big investment. I saw a couple of companies that I like that I wanted to talk to you about and kind of the audience. The one that I found was very interesting. It's called Laidback. And you can check out their products at www.laidbackrack.com and just laid back, just like you lean back. Um, and they have this kind of like milk crate, whatever you want to call it, yak pack, whatever kind of thing, tackle box storage on the back of your kayak. Um, they seem like they're very on a short budget, so they don't even have a social media right now that I can, point you at. But like I said, you can check out their website. I met Kemp DeBerry and Glenn DeBerry. I'm assuming they're obviously related, probably brothers. So, anyways, their tackle storage system was very interesting. It is high quality. Let me start with that. And I have a YouTube video that's coming out on it. It sits on, it's meant to sit on track mounts, right? And it's very adjustable. They can adjust the very ways. By the way, they have a few models, different sizes, and all that. Now, not all kayaks have track mounts on the back, so if yours doesn't have one, you would have to install it, a track mount, to use it. But the main attraction to this, there's a couple of things that stand out. It has a little lever that comes out to the front. So if you're going through skinny waters or low-hanging branches or low-hanging bridges, you can just lift the lever, push it back, and the rods that you have horizontal are going to lay back, not completely, that's going to fall out, but lay back a little bit more than 45 degrees. And that way you can easily go through most, low-hanging bridge or vegetation.
You meant vertical, not horizontal.
Yes, I meant vertical.
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you for correcting me.
No,
Yes.
you're good.
So I thought that was interesting. A couple of things that I wasn't sure of is the price. The price for them, I think the big one was $250, and I think all of them, even the small one, was close to $200. The small one seemed great for skinny waters or small kayak like the Crescent, or any small kayak meant for skinny waters. And again, has that same fisher that you could just lay back the rods with easy peasy, just pull of a lever and that's it. The material is covered in a cloth. So when I asked him, it's like, does treble hooks and hooks can? He says, yeah, you can get a couple of treble, you can get your hooks snagged into this. But the reason why they do it, it's because it doesn't, make any noise. So everything is covered, with that cloth. So kind of avoids making noise when you're taking tackle boxes, when you're covering, it doesn't have, the lid is soft-sided cloth. So yeah, that's kind of a give and take. You don't make a lot of noise, but I figured, even though it's heavy duty, soft-sided, it's still prone to get snagged, I'm sure, with some hooks.
I could see that, especially like if you're rotating your rods back at that 45-degree angle and you're rotating it down and bait gets close to the case. But that's something I didn't see it directly, and I think you or Jimmy told me about it, and I'm pretty sure it was you. And that's something I've talked about for a little bit with a couple of people, like having that feature to be able to tilt it back on demand is huge for like those situations like you talked about, low-lying trees, going under bridges. Because fishing Gunnersville, Jimmy Skinner takes me to some spot where I have to like go through a culvert full of spiders, and I had to pull all my rods out of my crate, lay them down in front of me. Whereas if I could have tilted those all back, like problem solved, less messing around, in skinny waters. Like I got a little river here that I fish, and there's some trees on the banks that I can find myself floating into from time to time, and rod tips getting hung up. So that tilt back feature is huge. I think you'll probably see some other companies like, pick that concept up over time, like Yak Attack, Yak Gadget, Yak Gear, things like that. Anybody that's making crates, but super clever idea. I like it.
Yeah, no, I love that idea. Again, it a little pricey, but the quality of the material seems very, very good material. And it's also meant for saltwater fishing as well. So they got it, like powder
Stainless
coated and
steel
everything,
screws
stainless
and
steel,
all that.
or
Yeah,
yeah, it's all that jazz.
that's
What
cool.
else what else did you saw that you liked? I know you were busy doing the podcast. You did what, 18 podcasts?
Yeah, yeah. I think it was 18.
Damn, in 4 days. That's crazy.
Like 3.5.
3.5 days.
Yeah.
Props to you,
Yeah,
my man.
yeah, because Tuesday I did mostly setup, and then we did I think it was two or three in the evening. Man, I really didn't get to see much. I did do a podcast with my people over at Lakewood Products, and
Mhm.
we got to showcase a new release, and it's a case that I actually have, but it's smaller. And we talked about it previously on the podcast with them. It's called the Little Sidekick, and it's a cool little tackle box that you could put both 3600s in. It's got their unique hanging system for like crankbaits, jerk baits, stuff like that. So you're not like putting all your crankbaits in a 3700 box and then pulling them out and having to detangle all the treble hooks.
Yeah.
They got this really cool hanging system. And then there's like pockets for plastics, there's spinnerbait hangers in there and stuff like that. And it's this little case, and you can actually stand on it. So you can put it on the deck of your kayak and use it for sight fishing. And then the one really unique thing about it is that it floats. So it's got some foam material. It is a fabric outside, but it's got a foam material underneath that fabric. So if you were to fall out of your kayak, like somebody I know,
Oh, yeah, we
and
can talk about that.
we could talk about that. But if you were to fall out of your kayak, like your gear's floating, it's not sinking to the bottom. So that's why I really like it. That and the standing aspect for like sight fishing, because I use their bigger case and it's the same concept. So that was really cool. Like I'm a big like gear management geek, because half the time I'm so disorganized. So anything that can make my life easier to keep myself organized, like that's a huge thing. So yeah, that was one cool thing I saw for sure.
That was pretty cool. Yeah, and I got to see that live show that you did with them. I also wanted to give a shout out to Spike It. I met with Will Wilds. Now for those who are not familiar, Spike It is kind of like that garlic scented ink that you kind of dip the tails of your, of your soft plastics, and you use it to give that color and that scent to it. I personally am a huge advocate of that. I think they make a big difference. If anybody follows my social media on Instagram, I posted that a little reel on that on my tournament, the Hobie BOS at Toledo Bend, where I was struggling, and I finally took a little craw and dipped the tentacles into that red dye for Spike, and then immediately, like the very first cast of a place that I was already casting like a few dozen times, next cast I catch a largemouth bass. So I'm a huge believer in those products. I think anybody that tries it knows that they do make a difference. And I mean, whether it's the scent or the color that they highlight on your bait, it's pretty cool. Now, I found out they have more stuff that I was really interested. So they also have this markers where you can
Yeah.
draw like a line or a color on your hard plastic or even your soft plastic.
And it's got the
They,
scent in it too, right?
yes, I think
In
so.
the
Yes.
markers. Yeah.
They also have like a little I don't know, like a gel that you can like rub into that has little sparkles in it and has horrible smell. I got to smell that. I almost want to throw up, but that's what fish like. Um, But the other one that I like is they have this die where you can take your Colorado blades or your willow blades from your spinners, dip them into that color, and you can exchange it. So to me, that could potentially save you lots of money down the road if you're big into using spinner baits or even uh, bladed jigs. You can dip
Sure.
that bladed jig into that, and they also do have like a little cleanser that you can clean them out and bring them back to original color or chrome finish that most of them have. I really liked it because again, I can go ahead and I have like a little stock of like willow blades and Colorado blades that I exchange. Now I can just, if I find myself move from one body of water to the other, and now this body of water, this area of the lake or river is very stained, then I can dip that Colorado blade into a chartreuse or red or black or whatever other colors they have. I think they have 4 or 5 different colors. Now you can just dip it and you don't have to worry about exchanging them, and then you can use that cleaner to bring them back to the original chrome color if you decide you want to change it. So you can buy a whole bunch of them, have them pre-colored before you go into tournament, have them ready to go in case of changing visibility on lakes or rivers or wherever it is that you're fishing. So they have a bunch of other stuff, and I was really impressed by it. I only knew them for their ink, to kind of like dye your soft plastic, but they have a whole bunch of other products that I think is cool because it saves you money down the road.
So John Graves, he used to be on Paddle and Fin with Brad Hicks doing
Yeah.
the tournament recaps way back in the day, and he's got his own little podcast. But last year, I know he got hooked up with those folks. If you go back, I think it's on his Instagram or Facebook page. He's got some really cool posts where he did this, what you were talking about with the markers drawn on plastics
Yeah.
and John's a very artistic dude. If you've never met John Graves, you definitely got to meet him in person. But he's done a lot of cool stuff with the Spike It brand, as far as like showing off like different ways to do things. If you're interested in that, I would go back, look up John Graves on Instagram and scroll back. He's been doing stuff all year long, like posting up I remember one I think it was a plastic swim bait. I don't know if it was a Kitech or like a big Joshy swim bait, but he drew like some patterns on there, scales, things like that, and very, very unique. And it was a cool, easy way to take a real basic bait and flash it up a little bit and add that scent aspect to it, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that stuff is super cool, man. I got intrigued into that stuff this past year, just seeing him posting pictures. But I'm like you, I like the little bit of dye. I got chartreuse and I think like orange craw or something like that, or whatever it may be. It's like an orangish red for like dipping, tails of Senkos, the pinchers on, crayfish, craw, pattern baits and stuff like that. And it's a cool product.
Yeah, it is definitely. They also have, and they actually gave me a free sample of that. They also have this black marker, so on your braided line, and it really, what it's telling me now, I haven't tried it, but what it's telling me is that it really doesn't come off. So you can, if you want to darken the braided line, if you don't have a leader, you want to darken it, you can put it with that mark. It'll go like pitch black, and it makes it less visible for bass, especially on stained water. So definitely check it out. Spike It. I think, let me see. The website is www.ispikeit.com. Doesn't say if it has social media account on the business
They
card, but
they definitely do have social medias. I think it's just Spike It. If you type in Spike It on Instagram or Facebook, it should pop up.
yeah. So that was really interesting. Anything else? I know you interviewed Tight Lines. I
Yeah,
thought their anchors was pretty cool, man.
yeah. I remember them. Brad Hicks and Josh
Yep.
Eldridge originally had those guys on. way back when, and I did a short podcast with him down at the booth. We had been talking back and forth, and yeah, man, that anchor is super cool. It's fully collapsible. They kind of opened my eyes because it, if you guys go look up their anchor, basically it's got 4 arms that fold down, right? And for every photo you see of it, all 4 arms are folded out. And that's the way you would think you should use it. But like those guys mentioned, like, look, man, if you're fishing a rocky area and you're worried about getting hung up, why couldn't you just put 1 arm down? And I was like, holy smokes. Like, why didn't I think of that? And it's so true, right? And in the way like those arms are, they explained it really well. And for me, from the Midwest, I'm in farm country basically. He's like, if you look at it from a side profile, it looks like a plow that would plow the
Yeah.
fields. And I'm like, yeah, it does. And he's like, so what do you think that's going to do on a soft bottom? Plow itself into place when it starts getting drugged back. And I'm like, man, you guys got something here. And then it's also they got a breakaway system on it. So like if you get hung up, there's a way to break it out of that spot so you're not losing the anchor. And it could be used in freshwater, saltwater. They use a stainless steel. So like that's where part of the cost comes from, is it's a super high quality material that it's actually made out of. And it's unique. Everybody I've talked to that has one has nothing but good things to say about it. As far as like holding you in place, being able to get it out of some real sticky situations, like, rocks in the river, things like that, holds in moving water. So it's a really good, versatile company. They're based out of Canada, but like they said in that podcast, like you order from us, you'll get it in a week for sure. They haven't had any real issues with shipping or customs or things like that. He's like, usually if I ship an anchor out, depending on where you are in the lower 48 states, you'll get it in a week or less. So super high quality, works really well. You got to think outside of the box. Like the guy said too, you could open one arm on each side. So now it looks like your traditional boat anchor,
Yeah.
if you want a little more grab, or you're worried about the way it hits the bottom and grabs and things like that. Or he's like, if you really want to make sure you're not going anywhere, just open all 4 and drop it down. But the fact that they put some serious thought into it, and it was a thing where a friend of theirs had asked him to build it, and then other friends saw this anchor and were like, hey, can you make one for me? Hey, can you make one for me? And then they were like, maybe we got something here. And it was cool too, because they talked about it in that podcast. He's like, we were at ICAST 4 years ago, right before COVID, and people saw it. They thought it was cool. And he said it seemed like a lot of people thought it was a cool idea, but they didn't see us sticking around. And then they came back this year after, they released all the restrictions on, the Canadian border and everything, because a lot of Canadians couldn't come into the States for a long time. And they came back to ICAST this year, and a lot of people were like, you were here like 4 years ago, weren't you? And they were like, yep. And they're like, you guys are still doing this? And they're like, absolutely. We keep growing and getting bigger and better, and, making little changes and things like that to, get this anchor really dialed in. And now we're doing a big push. And they're like, that's cool. I want to buy some, for some of the buyers that were walking around the show. So it was really cool, man. They've come from a little garage run business to now getting a lot bigger.
No, it's a cool product. What I like about it the most, and for those that really don't have a visual on it, it's kind of like that umbrella style anchor that you see at Academy Outdoors and Ports. That it's kind of like, it has like 4 tentacles or 4 spoons, but it folds. It's really very heavy for its size, and it kind of folds out a lot. This one is a lot higher quality, and what I love about it is it weighs a lot less. And that to me is a big issue because I see a lot of anglers out there that want to do the anchor at the front of the kayak, especially in the new canoes. I saw it on the new canoe setup, which is a great
that was on the
idea,
Romels. Yep.
especially when those big stable kayaks that you can fish 360 out of it. You kind of want to be, ahead of the wind. And it weighs, I think, 3.5 pounds, which is not a big deal. I've seen Toledo Bend. I have a friend of mine who flipped his kayak, and the first thing when I was looking at the YouTube video that he made out of it, he had an anchor on the front and anchor on the back, and I'm thinking, 5-foot roller waves, that's not a good idea, especially the anchor on the front. And it almost cost him a lot. Like, he flipped his kayak. Thankfully, he was close to the shore, and there was no worse for the wear. But if that would have happened on, offshore, that would have been a problem. But that thing is not going to weigh down your kayak. It's only 3.5 pounds. So that's what I really liked about it.
For sure.
It's definitely a nice product.
I pulled a picture of it up on screen for those watching on YouTube and Facebook and stuff. So yeah, it's super cool, man. And you could see that's a lot of beef in there for 3.5 pounds for sure.
Yeah. And another product that I saw that I liked, and I had a guest, I can't remember who it was, but I had a guest on the podcast talk about Courtland Braid. And I was very impressed with Courtland Braid. I talked to the manager, marketing and product development, Brian Edwards, and you can check him out at www.courtlandline.com. That's CORTLANDLINE. Once again, www.courtlandline.com. They are based out of New York. They have a silent braid line, and I thought it was pretty cool. I was skeptical at first, but we tried rubbing it on like 5 different surfaces, and that thing did not make noise. And that's not easy to find on braided line. That's one, I think that's the biggest thing that I liked about it. The other thing is, now I can't attest to this part because to attest to this, I would have had to try it over a certain period of time. But what they're telling me, and I'll take their word for it, the color on the braid is not going to fade out. Whatever color you bought, it was the black, brown, stained, green, whatever it is, that color is going to stay true for the life of the braid. Again, that part I cannot attest because I haven't tried it. That's only after a few months using it. I can attest to that, but I'll take him for the word. What I can attest is that it's really silent braid. So I'm definitely going to reach out to them. You can order online. You don't have to wait to get to the store. I think you can order online. So I'm definitely ordering that online. Nice. Because I use braid for everything other than my big swim bait rod. Everything else I have a braid, and if for the most part, like on crankbaits and swim baits, I'll use or small swim baits and crankbaits, I'll use a leader. Reason why I don't use it on my big swim bait is if you ever thrown a big swim bait and you got a backlash, that's on a braided line, that thing's gonna break and you lost your $150 $200 swim bait. So definitely not using that on a swim bait. But anything else, I just go straight braid with either straight braid or fluorocarbon leader or monofilament leader if I'm using it for top water frogging.
Yeah, it's pretty cool to see like all the advancements in fishing line. Like I know last year with P-Line, they launched a top water specific floating line, which was super cool last year. I haven't used any yet. I do have a spool down in the garage because I'm with P-Line and I don't fish much top water, to be honest. Like I went frogging this past weekend on Gunnersville with Jimmy and like had a blast. And I was like, this just isn't my jam anymore, But yeah, it's cool to see all these different companies doing cool stuff with braid and just line in general. The fluorocarbons are getting thinner and stronger, and the quiet braid, because when I was on Gunnersville, I was punching through some lily pads, and like, I could hear that braid like kind of rubbing, like that gritty sound that you hear. Whereas that smoothness of this Courtland line is kind of unique for that feature.
Yeah, it's definitely cool. Other products that I saw, Livingston Lures. I love their crankbaits and their jerk baits because they don't have their traditional beads. And I didn't know the first time I bought a spook and a crankbait square bill from Livingston Lures. I was brand new to fishing, and
Sure.
they work really well, especially the spook. I didn't know that instead of having just the beads and make noise, they actually have a recording. So it has a little small computer that's activated by motion, and it'll make the sounds of bait fish. And you can, when you order, you can decide which sound you want to use. I don't know. I think it has like 4 or 5 different sounds. I think it's something like Chad, spawning Chad, or something like that, or
That's crazy. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, I mean, that to me is pretty cool. I've used Livingston Lures with great success. I didn't know about that. I just figured, it makes, a sound and that's it, and it'll track fish. But the fact that you actually can customize it with, I think it's 4 or 5 different sounds depending on the forage of your lake. You can customize your order. It says, I want it with this sound or that sound. That's because that's what the bait fish that are, or the bass feed on my lake or favorite waters. Then I thought that was pretty awesome, and you should definitely check them out. Livingston Lures, their website is livingstonlures.com, and I'm sure they have a social media following. It's a pretty big company.
It's pretty cool to see those technology advancements coming into the fishing world, like now you got baits with recordings in them.
So the technology aspect of it. Also Shimano with their, microcomputer on the reels. I thought that was pretty cool too. And that's not really new, but they kind of doubled down on that technology for their new reels that are coming up. Not cheap reels though, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, you're seeing it everywhere, man. Just technology from all different aspects, whether it be reels, fish finders, baits, things like that,
And another product that I wanted to talk about. So let's talk a little bit about the kayak, and this is where the fun is about to start. I know that on the kayak side of things, let me see. I got you twice here, so there we go. So on the kayak side of things, there wasn't really a lot of new products. It wasn't like when the Hobie came out with the 360 drive or anything like that. But there was a couple of new kayaks came out. Let's start with our favorite experience here at ICAST, and that was me demoing the Crescent Shirley. So for those that don't know,
I didn't get to see this. I just heard about it. So I want to hear your side of this because, I think you did tell me about this because I was like,
I told you about it. But
I was like, so did something interesting happen yesterday, Armando?
So I tried different kayaks, and we'll talk about it. But the funniest one is I tried the Crescent Shirley. And Drew, if you're listening, I'm sorry. I'm sorry about this, but I have to bring it up. So I tried the Crescent Shirley. First of all, let me talk about the great things about the Crescent Shirley. It is handles very well. It's fast and it's very customizable. High quality stuff. Drew Gregory did an amazing job with the design of this, and I'm sure other people were involved in the design of this as well. My biggest thing with the Crescent Kayak Shirley, and I had Drew Gregory on the podcast, I had Jeff Little on the podcast, superhuman athlete. So for him, this might have not been a problem. And I had Scott Butcher on the podcast. And they all, at different times, talked about the secondary stability on the kayak. Now, keep in mind, I had just demoed the Jackson Nor, which is probably, if not one of the most stable kayaks out there. My kayak is a PA-14, which is obviously a very, very stable kayak. especially compared to the Crescent Shirley. So I get on the water. I'm fine. I'm in love with this kayak. It moves fast. It's very agile. I love it. I can see why Drew Gregory loves it. So in the video, I'm saying, let's check out the stability on it. And I leaned ever so to the left, and I just got that thing. First of all, secondary stability, no. That thing just threw me off. And I wasn't even trying to hold on to the kayak. At the point where I saw, like, I'm about to just hit the drink. Let me just let go. Thinking, let me not flip the kayak. Let me just get in the water. The kayak still flipped. It flipped way too easily, in my opinion. But I redeemed myself for a few seconds there because I'm like, I can hear everybody laughing keep in mind, for those who are not familiar, ICAST on the first day on Tuesday has a huge pond in the front of it. Not a huge pond, a pretty big, long pond where you demo the kayaks. So, right, that's from
size.
10 a.m. to 2 p.m. So I hear everybody laughing. I was like, I have to redeem myself. So like a champion, I get on the kayak, I flip it back right side up. I push up myself to the kayak and made it to the kayak very effortlessly. And all of a sudden, the laughter starts into cheering and applaud. And I stand on the kayak and I do a bow. I bow to the crowd saying, hope you enjoy the entertainment. As I'm sitting down on the kayak, that's when it got tipsy and I fell off again. Like 30 seconds after getting in the kayak, I fell off again. Then the same thing is like, no, not a big deal. I just flip the kayak. But, and this is key for those out there that love social media. This is why I don't like to use the chesty mount. But I did it for the sake of this video. Usually on my kayak, when I record, I have a camera on the front, camera on the back. But I don't really like a chesty mount just because you get tangled and everything. And sure enough, when I flip the kayak, I'm going to get on, the chesty mount gets caught somewhere in something in the kayak, and I couldn't get on for the life of me. And I would try to get on something, pull me back down. I couldn't figure out what it was. At that point, I actually started getting tired. I was like, screw it. Let's just, count my losses and just paddle, my feet to the fishing spot. And there, that bass fishing dude, Brandon Mays, go follow him. That bass fishing dude. The guy is a monster. He's 7 foot tall. He grabbed me out of the water like nothing. And I wasn't drowning on everything. I was just like, let me just paddle the kayak, hang on to the kayak and just paddle my feet to the fishing ramp, which was like 5 feet away from where I was anyways. So he just grabbed me with two hands and just lifted me up like a napkin. It's just like, and I was like, dude, you are strong as an ox, my friend. This guy that's 7 feet tall. So it was funny. Everybody laughed. Jimmy didn't see it. I told Jimmy the story. Next thing I know, half of ICAST found out about this thanks to Blabbermouth Jimmy. I ran into Ryan Lunch Money Lambert, a.k.a. Chris, and there's a story that I'm not going to say, but for those that know, his name was actually Chris during that week, but I can't say why. So I tell the story. By the next day, the other half of ICAST was telling me, oh, Ryan Lambert told me about it. He's actually looking for anybody who has video. He's willing to pay to have video so he can put it on the KBN page. And I'm not going to lie. As soon as that happened, my first thing is I hope and pray that nobody took a video. And if they did that, they didn't put it on the KBN group page.
Oh, man.
So if you're an ICAST and you have a video of me flipping the Shirley Crescent, whatever Ryan Lambert is offering you, I will double it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, sounds like you could profit off of Armando right now if you got some video footage. Well, no, I was gonna ask you because when you told me that story, were you wearing a PFD?
Oh no, yeah, I've always wear a PFD. And they asked me, do you want to wear a PFD? And I'm like, no, yeah, sure.
Well, I wasn't sure if they had them down there for people demoing boats. And you bring up a good point, right? Like that happened in a demo pool where there was hundreds of people around you. Now imagine if you were a mile off the shore in the middle of a lake by yourself and had that issue, right? Like that's why we wear PFDs, man. It's a good lesson or a good thing that how should I word this? It's a thing that happened, and it was a godsend that you were okay. You had your PFD. There was people around, but it goes to show you like that could have been a horrible situation down the road. Like you said, you don't normally wear that around your chest, and I'm sure you got hung up on like the handle or something like that. But I wanted to point out too, right? Like when you were talking about all those guys that talked about the stability of the Shirley, if you look at them, they all weigh under 200 pounds.
And they're superb athletes. Like Jeff Little is tall, but I don't know but he's a Tarzan.
Well, and that's the thing too, right? Like Drew Gregory could tell you it's a stable boat, but Drew Gregory weighs 100 pounds soaking wet. So like him talking about stability, like, and this is the way I look at it, because I'm a big dude, right? Like him talking about stability to me means absolutely nothing. Like, you know what I mean? I'm two Drews in one. So what stable is to him and what stable is to me is like two completely different things, right? So I like somebody that's looking for a kayak, just keep that in mind. Like I always love when people are like, did you see Christine Fisher standing on the front hatch of her Hobie PA-14? Yeah, sure. Well, Christine weighs 100 pounds. Like
she is tall though, but
right. But you get what I'm saying. Like, you know what I mean? Like you could do some pretty unique things if you're half the weight of me. But something to keep in mind when you're looking at kayaks and things like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and stability is something that, again, when Jeff Little is a tall man, he's taller than me, but he's Jeff Little, before he was a kayak fisherman, is a whitewater kayak guy. So, he's a superb athlete. His core strength is probably in the 1 percentile, compared to the rest of humanity. So, when they talk, like I said, it's not that it's not stable. Just keep in mind, if you don't have a superb athletic ability or, core muscle, balance, this may not be the kayak for you. And I've actually had a guest on the podcast that came up second place on a tournament and first time using the Shirley, and he flipped on the Shirley. He was telling me, he says, I flipped on that thing. So it's not, this is not a kayak this is kayak that is strictly for what it's called, the Shirley, for
moving
small,
water.
Skinny, shallow waters. You do not want to use this kayak. And again, all due respects to Drew, Jeff Little, and Scott Butcher, who like I said, high quality, great design. But it is what it is. It's not a kayak. Sure. If you're looking for a kayak that you can use on big water and skinny water, this is not it. You are strictly fishing skinny water with this thing.
Well, that goes back to what we've always preached, right? Demo. You know, it's like buying a car. Take it for a ride before you buy it. Otherwise, you might regret it and end up falling out of it twice in the front of hundreds of people.
The other kayak, then that was fun. Hopefully, there's no video coming up. The other kayak that I tried, and I wasn't really impressed by it, but there are some good things to talk about. It's the Jackson Knorr. And Dustin Nichols, if you're listening, I know he's big on the Jackson Knorr. He's in Jackson team. I was a little bit disappointed about that kayak, and I'll tell you what I did like about it.
Yeah, I'm curious what you were disappointed in too, because I looked at it. It was the first time I saw it. I used to be on the Jackson team.
You saw it, but have you gotten on that Jackson kayak?
I haven't got on the water with it. I'm super familiar with Jackson kayaks. I used to be on the Jackson kayak team, and I got to look at it in their booth. There was definitely some things I liked about it, but there was also some things I was like, really? The one thing I liked is they finally listened to 85% of their team and did like the internal rod storage, just like the Hobie, which was a huge improvement for them. The seat, I wasn't really impressed with because they kind of could have been more comfortable, I think, just by looking at it. It is a bigger boat. I'm sure they had every intention on competing with Hobie with this boat.
Yeah.
They redesigned the drive. And it's supposed to be like the smoothest drive ever. And it's belt driven, right? And I walked over to it And I spun the pedals once, and I'm like, there's no difference. It's still that real stiff, gritty drive. I wasn't impressed at all. Like, I thought it'd be buttery smooth. Like, you walk over to a new canoe with a pivot drive with the belt drive, and it's super smooth. But I'll be the first to tell you, I'm not a fan of the pivot drive. I think it's under ratioed. So, like, it feels like when I pedal the pivot drive, like, yeah, it pedals super smooth, but it's like a mountain bike, right? Or a road bike where you have it in a super low gear to go uphill, but like your feet are moving, but you feel like you're going nowhere. That's how
Yeah.
I feel with the pivot drive. I'm on the new canoe team. I'll be the first person to tell you that, right? Whereas on the Jackson drive, it just seemed like real, like rigid when you went to pedal it. And it did seem quieter than the old drive, but it just still had a lot of like, um, I don't know, like a lot of tension on it, right? Like it would take a lot of effort to pedal it.
Yeah.
I know you told me you didn't. It was really hard for you to get used to that circular motion because you're used to the Hobie with the back and forth, right? And
Yeah.
I can attest to that because I actually fished an event out of Susie Roloff's Hobie one year because that's when I was in a Jackson Blue Sky and they didn't accept it in the tournament trail. So
Yeah.
Susie's like, I'll give you a Hobie. And like, I remember I got in that thing and I'm like trying to spin my feet and I'm like, this doesn't work. What am I doing wrong? But it's just like that muscle memory thing, right?
Yeah.
But how did you feel it went pretty quick on the water? Because Jackson's always been really good at like designing hulls, so to speak, for like speed and stability. And I know you mentioned it was a super stable boat.
Yeah.
And I'll say like, and I've said this before, like I felt like when I was in a Hobie, it wasn't stable. And again, that's my opinion. I was in a Jackson big rig in a Blue Sky, and I'm in a freaking Unlimited, so it's a super wide boat and whatever. But I just didn't feel comfortable in that Hobie, and I think it was because I didn't trust the secondary stability, so to speak. So I'm curious from you, like being in a PA all the time, like how do you feel it was more stable than that? But how did you think it was speed wise pedaling it?
Okay, so compared to like you said, this is the competition for the PA14. It felt a lot more stable than the PA14. The
Okay.
PA14 has stability, but it really does have a lot of secondary stability. I can attest to that. It can feel tipsy, but it'll straighten out.
And I think that's just it. Like when I was in a PA14, I think I didn't trust that secondary stability. And I know a ton of Hobie guys, and they're like, dude, you just got to trust the boat. And I didn't, and that's my fault, right? Like it was a boat I'd never been in, and I had thousands of dollars worth of gear in it. So that was the kind of thing that like threw me off, and I didn't really feel like flipping the boat by trusting it, so to speak, because I was fishing some deeper water. But continue. I'm sorry.
No, the Jackson NAR does have. I mean, I haven't tried every kayak. I know the Big Rig has amazing stability. The Old Town Sportsman has amazing stability. I think it's compared to the Old Town Sportsman. I think it actually might be a little bit more stable than the Old Town Sportsman. So I was really impressed with the stability. The whole design has, the bottom of the hull has Eric Jackson's DNA printed all over it, which means it's fast and it's agile. That's Eric Jackson is, godfather in the United States of like whitewater fishing and all that, and adventure kayaks. Not whitewater fishing, whitewater kayak. But anyways, it moves fast. It is very stable. I love the horizontal rod storage. I love that it is made very customizable. So you can really customize it. You got the rails going all the way from the back to the front, and you can really customize it however you dream of customizing. I love those three things about the Jackson NAR.
Okay.
What I didn't like, the pedal drive, I'm sorry, it's trash. It is absolute trash. That thing was so squeaky that even the Jackson NAR the Jackson representative there told me, so aside from the huge squeaking sound, what did you like about the pedal? He even mentioned it before I mentioned it. It was super squeaky, and that could have been just that boat. It could have been just that one because it's a demo. Maybe it's gone through the ringers. But hey, if you have a kayak, you're buying a kayak, and you're gonna put it to the ringer, and if that's gonna be squeaking like a month later after you buy it, then no.
Well,
It's
and
Go ahead.
that's been the thing with Jackson drives forever, right? Like you would have to pack them full of grease and they would run buttery smooth. But over time, like that grease would wear out. And I'm talking like not that long of a time. Like I used to shoot my Jackson drive full of grease once a month just to keep it running smooth. But with this new belt drive part, I thought it was going to eliminate all that. And it seems like it hasn't. And that's the thing too, right? Like, and I'm not trying to knock Jackson in any way, dude. Like, they made a badass boat. I'm friends with a lot of people on their team. They're the OGs of kayak fishing along with Wilderness Systems, right? Like, but they had an opportunity to knock it out of the park, and I think they got 80% there, and like kind of failed on that last 20% to really hit a home run. And you know, that was the thing, right? Like, I think a lot of people were skeptical on that new drive, and they were like, I don't know, we'll see.
So, anyways, Brian is having some technical difficulties. We've been trying all this episode to go back and forth and get it fixed. But, anyways, just to wrap it up, it is getting kind of late, especially for Brian, who has to doing all these episodes every time he got caught out. So, anyways, the Jackson NAR wasn't really impressed by it, about their drive. Everything else was pretty cool, but their drive to me was too squeaky. It was herky-jerky. I felt winded after just like 5 minutes. And keep in mind, I have a Hobie PA14, and I would be 5, 6, even 8 hours on the water and go across 10 miles and not get as winded as I got just working this pedal drive for the Jackson NAR. Herky jerky. It was just, I don't know, man. It's, to me, I don't like to poop on anybody's parade, but it really does. They need to revamp and go back to the drawing board on that drive. That was not, and maybe it was just that model, but if it was, that's on them for using that specific demo for people to try and review, because it was bad. It was not a good drive. Other than that, the only other products that I'm going to go here on a tangent is the Trident. If you haven't seen the Trident, it's supposed to be, I don't know what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a watercraft that is in form of a trident, but it really looks like a spatula with a short handle. That's really, to scrape like those spatulas, or I forgot the name of that tool, just kind of like scrape old paint before you repaint your house. That's what it looks like. And the main thing about it is it has a paddle, but you don't paddle with your hand. That paddle has two like slipper style things that you put your feet in. So you slip into your feet into this kind of like slippers that are attached to the paddle, not pedal, to the paddle, and you paddle with your hand. I know it's kind of weird that I'm keep emphasizing paddle, but I just want to make you, do you understand that it's not a pedal drive? It is a paddle, a hand paddle, but you slip your feet in it, and it's low to the hull of this Trident, which again they should be called the spatula, and that's it. You just with your feet. It has ample room. It has some wheels, but you're gonna need a special trailer for this. I don't think this is something that you can put on your back of your pickup truck. You're gonna need a utility trailer to haul this thing. It's heavy. It is $2,500. And it doesn't have anything customizable. Like the whole platform, there's no like rails, H rails, or any kind of rails where you can, mount rod holders or tackle crate or anything. It's just bare to the bone piece of whatever I don't know if it's metal. I don't know what it's made of, and it's absolute atrocity. I don't know who made this, but whoever made this should just drop it, man. It is garbage. That's all I'm gonna say. And again, I hate to poop on somebody's parade. I'm sure whoever made this, whether it's a guy or girl, I'm sure it's a great person. I'm sure they had the best intentions, but this is not it. This product is junk, and you should just leave this product and try something different because it's not going to work. I can't see that going past a few weeks from now. But anyways, that's my tangent on that product. If you want to go check it out, I'm sure you can Google Trident. I lack the how do I say this? I lack the enthusiasm to go research online. So do your own research. Go Google it. Look for Trident or something, whatever you want to. It is that it's called that website, but it's really a piece of atrocity that just needs to go away. But anyways, that's it for today. If you made it this far, please go check out the sponsor. Go to douglasoutdoors.com. Check out their full lineup of LOS, X Matrix, and award-winning fly fishing rod. Big thank you to Brian Schiller, who stayed up late on this Monday to bring this episode together and edit it. So again, thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend. Have a great day. If you're going to be on the water, please wear your PFDs. You're going to have a couple of beers while you're on the water. Please drink responsible. Stay safe. Make sure you make it back to your loved one. Peace out and tight lines.